basically, my intention is to get the level of awareness that we deal with more dynamic, and also to get more skill sets into our people that need them, right? Now, there is an aspect of you that is already in tune with nature, and nature has its own level of attunement to the point where, like, these trees are like the antennae for the earth, right? So everything the trees know up here, they're going to transfer it into their roots. They're going to be picked up by the mycelial network, which is the same network that forms the mushrooms. It'll be transferred to all the other trees throughout the world. As long as there's some kind of connection between them, they will be able to reach. Whatever can't be reached through that network will be reached through what we call the spiritual network, which is the unseen part of you. And whenever you come into an environment like this, it's going to refresh the essence of what you naturally are. So often as possible, you should get away from the hustle and bustle of the streets and the technological world, and come amongst the trees and amongst the plants, because they always have committed themselves to moving at the natural pace. The natural pace is that hum that goes throughout the universe. In some cultures, they call it a om, but nature has one of those itself. Whenever you come amongst it, it'll recalibrate you. So it's sort of like your reset button. When you come back into a quiet setting, it will help to make you remember who you are, and it'll help you to vibrate according to who you are, and you will actually get strengthened, and you can reconfigure. So whenever you get stressed and tense, instead of just wilding out, go to a forest. If you need some immediate calming down, go to a body of water, preferably one that's trickling. Now, if you got access, try to get to a waterfall. That's the best. That's the absolute best. Okay, some more people are coming. Great, 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 great. So we can kind of form like a little bit of a circle. What each herb does, that's cool. That's actually minor, because once your attunement is established, the herbs will begin to talk with you, and they will let you know what they are beneficial for. And it's not only just the herbs. We're going to see some stones that we will look at, and we're going to see some logs that appear to be dead. So I tell people that trees have a second life. So you have the one life while they're growing and whatever they're doing, giving you fruits or anything like that. And then there's a come a time when the trees stop that expression of themselves, and they go into this kind of expression. Either the wind is going to come and knock them over, but they're going to yield themselves off in the form of a wood. And just like different stones have different values, different woods have different values. The wood have been supporting us for eons. We live inside it, we sit on it, we have implements made out of it, and a lot of our life is based on wood. So what I would like to see happen as time goes on is that people get more in tune and begin actively utilizing the resources that the Creator had given us instead of relying on somebody who's in charge of things all the time. Like there always has to be one in charge of everything. We don't do in charge. We do acknowledgement. We acknowledge nature. We acknowledge life, and it supports us. And the more you appreciate it, the more it's going to support you. That gets into what we call stewardship, meaning that you actively are committed not to hurt the earth, but to be as helpful as you possibly can. Keeping a small carbon footprint, keeping a small every kind of footprint, not disturbing the world. Now this park that we're in today is called Walker's Woods. I don't know who Walker was, but originally it was the land of the Lenni Lenape people, who were the stewards of the land for more than 10,000 years. And as other people came and felt that they needed it to build their houses and didn't necessarily agree to share. They started out with agreement to share, but systematically started overrunning the people that were there and taking over everything and owning it. In our original states, we didn't own land. The land owned us. So that's the way we would approach matters. That's the proper way to approach matters. Look at this tree behind her. You see how big that tree is? Mm-hmm. Now, which one of you is mightier than that tree? And grab your hands and snatch it up and knock it over. But if it falls on you, or if it falls on your car, which you've seen recent examples of that, you know that nature and the earth is way mightier than we are. Mm-hmm. So we got to be mindful of that, right? Notwithstanding that there's nobody here as old as that tree. Mm-hmm. So if you imagine if somebody been around that long, what they could tell you and what they could impart to you about life. So you want to get your level of sensitivity to that kind of degree where you can interact directly with these beings. Now, part of doing that is having your veins and arteries and your colon clean so that you're not storing a bunch of putrefaction and building up sludge and stagnation. Everything in nature, you see, as old as this tree is, look how fresh the leaves are. Brand new leaves, brand new branches, new growth. How is that possible? Because that's the plan of nature. Even with yourself, you're supposed to have new growth all the time. So you don't want to get stagnant of mindset. You don't want to get stagnant of habits. You don't want to eat stagnant, stale, dead food. You want to really, really, really get on this nature thing and let the nature of you synchronize with the nature of life and be one, right? So those are the important key concepts. Number two, we talk about survival. Survival from what? Survival from ignorance, basically. Because the only thing that creates an aberration in nature is ignorance. Now, are there mishaps? Not in nature. The earth itself is a living creature. It has its own intentions. It has its own life force. It has its own experience. So it has body functions. It has body excretions. It eats, it consumes things, it belches, it defecates. But the form of defecation to you might look something like lava. And like inside of its stomach is hot. And it has gas that comes forth out. And it has these seasons and it has these experiences when it's going through what it goes through. It also has a relationship with the other planets. It has magnetic relations with the other planets. Even though you generally don't see two of them collide or come together like that, they have a magnetic. Like right now, there's another solar system that's close by us. There's also an asteroid that's passing by us right as we speak. All of those things exert a magnetic influence on the Earth, which is making the weather like really crazy as far as we're concerned. But that's normal. Every 3,600 years that happens. But we didn't get a chance to see it happen, so we didn't get a chance to record it. But there were people that did record it, and you could read about those kind of things. So, main thing, try to be sensitive, try to be aware, try to stay away from people that are toxic, spiritually toxic, mentally toxic, and folks that got nothing better to do, they call you up and dump on you, and then get mad if you don't co-sign their foolishness. Right? So you all know such individuals. Yeah, try to minimize your interaction with that, because even though you feel, oh, I'm strong, I can ignore that, it's still absorbing into you, and then you got to take it somewhere and evacuate it. The easiest way to evacuate it is with water. The water is so magnetic, it'll take all that stuff off you and wash it on down. If you bathe and you do a prayer while you're bathing, and you command, let myself be cleansed and all of these maladies leave from me and be cleansed away, you'd be surprised how sensitive the universe is. It will obey what you ask it to, because it's there to serve you. Okay, everybody happy with that? Mm-hmm. All right. Yes, sir.
I have one question. Would you tell them about the safety factors of these trees, what they may fear, and how to respond?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to cover a lot of that kind of experience. But the pre-safety that I want to go through, there's a type of bug that lives out here that's called a tick. And there's two ways you can encounter a tick. Typically, they like to live in pine trees. So if you right under the pine tree, you can fall, bloop, and then walk and find an ideal spot and then burrow in. And then it usually takes him a while to pick out a spot that he likes. So when we come out of the woods, make sure everybody check each other to make sure you didn't pick up any ticks. The other way you could get a tick, sometimes they be sitting on a branch with their hands out like this. As soon as something brushes feather, they grab on. And what they do, they suck blood. If you do happen to inherit one, put some tea tree oil on him, or some eucalyptus, some peppermint oil, and all these insects do not breathe out of their mouth. They have holes on the abdomen which they breathe through. Once that's coated with that hot oil like that, I don't mean hot by you heating it, I'm talking about oil that burns, then that bug would be out of business. There are little flowers that grow on it in the spring that look like tulips. They're yellow and pink. Now, we generally don't use this for anything medicinally wise, but the wood is extremely strong, and it is in the category of hardwoods. Matter of fact, this is one of the oldest type of trees that are in this region. There are times when we see petrified ones of these laying on the ground, made into stone, right? A lot of that wood can be used for furniture making. Come on. So this is called a red maple tree. As you notice, some of the stems are red. And that's the same tree that Canada uses for its flag. Okay. This is also the tree that they make maple syrup off of. Now, making maple syrup is not that good for the tree. It uses the life juices of the tree. Now watch this. It takes 2 gallons of tree blood to make 1 quart of maple syrup. So you basically, if you're gonna do that, you tap, well, not a tree this size wouldn't be used. It would be an older tree. And then you put a pipe right underneath the skin of the tree, and it drip, 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 drip. When you get at least 2 gallons of it, then you slowly boil it down until you concentrate the sugars in it, and then you'll have premium maple syrup. Right? There's another kind of maple tree that's indigenous to this area. I'm gonna show it to you later on. Remember that tulip poplar tree? Look way up. That's one. Over here, you'll see some ferns. You see the ferns? Now, fern is a big part of the Chinese medicine system. So they use them for digestive related issues and supporting the kidneys and the liver functions like that, right? Okay.
You can eat it raw, or you have to boil it?
I wouldn't. I would prepare it first. But now, interestingly enough,
Saute it.
No, I wouldn't eat it as a food. I use it strictly as a medicine. Yeah, some things you can eat it like a food and you can get an abundance of it. But that one, I will use it only medicinally. Now you will see a lot of gemstones out here. So those of you that cut gemstones, these can also be cut. The ones with the little shiny, that's actually a wood. That's not a stone.
How about this one?
Okay, this kind, that's what I was looking for. You see that? We usually call this a sandstone because you can crush it down into sand. A lot of the old buildings were actually built out of this. It's strong enough to make a house out of. But you see that shiny stuff? We call that mica. So the name for that kind of stone conglomerate, you call it mica schist. Schist means just a bunch of different minerals all schisted together in there. But yeah, you can actually carve this very easily into whatever shape that you want. There's a lot of that kind of stone all over this whole region. This reddish brown.
Okay.
All right, that's an old tree, right? And look. Now, if you go to Home Depot, you can buy this stuff to put in your garden. That's called peat moss.
That's all that is?
When they're finished with
That's it, right? All this rotted wood, and it's full of nutrients. So if you came out and you took a shovel and you gathered that up and put it on your garden, You have free peat moss. Very interesting, right? So the more you stay in the forest, you'll be comfortable, naturally. How are you, Mr. Tony? All right, so yeah, these apple trees, look closely at the leaves and look at the bark. Now, certain things like cherry trees and these young apple trees, they have little horizontal stripes that go around the young bark. And you notice the young bark is kind of shiny, got a sheen to it. So that's how you can tell. And then the pattern of how it grows. So the more often you get exposed to these types of knowledge, you want to notate what you saw, because just like you meet a person and after a while you become familiar with them, after a while they become a trusted friend, that's how you want to do your herbs. Look at this bark. You see the color of it? It's gray and it has a particular kind of flake pattern. As you look further up and then you look at the smaller branches, you're going to see the horizontal stripe going around. This is the indication that it's some kind of fruit tree. All right? Own body poisons itself because it can't get rid of the waste. So a good fast periodically is highly beneficial. So even if you take certain days a week, okay, I'm not going to eat on this day. I just drink water. When are you going to starve? Well, periodically you need to starve a little bit. We're not built to eat every day, all day. That's something that started with the kings and queens of Europe. Like that whole 3 meal a day business, that's a tradition out of Europe. That's not a natural phenomenon. If you eat one good heavy meal a day and the rest of the day is mostly liquids, you'll be much healthier, your joints will move easier, your tissue will repair faster, and you're gonna be better off. Your attitude will be better, you'll be nice, you know. Because people that are always mean and all that, most of the time they all clogged up. And the liver especially is clogged up.